High school baseball again. Fort Frye taking on Hiland in the Division 6 Eastern District Final. After 3 walks, load the bases, Chatham Corson draws one more to push across the first run for the Cadets. They do it the easy way this time. Let's go to the second. 2 runners on for Clayton Tullius, and he sends a screamer back at the mound. Watch out, that hits Monagold Grady in the back, and Grady Schuster comes around to score. Fort Frye goes up 2-0. Third inning, runners on the corners. Monagold Griffin turns on one and drives in the first run of the game for the Hawks. Here they come. Bases loaded, and Mike Miller will draw a walk, and the tying run will touch home. Free pass. Hate to see those. After a mound visit, Andre Yoder lines one into left field, and that's down. Driving in 2 more, and Hiland puts up 5 runs in the 3rd inning. Let's go to the 5th. Isaiah Wagler. Deep drive to left field, and that will leave the yard. A 2-run shot as Hiland goes on to win 11-2 and takes the district championship.